The story starts with a tragedy that the wizarding world never sees coming. In the middle of the night, a fire tears through number 4 Privet Drive. It is not caused by a curse or a wand, but by a simple broken gas line. The Dursleys are gone before the smoke even reaches the second floor. Inside the cupboard under the stairs, 5-year-old Harry Potter wakes up to the sound of roaring heat. He sits perfectly still in the dark. He does not know that the flames are avoiding his cupboard door as if they are afraid of him. He only knows that he is alone. Albus Dumbledore arrives before the fire department. He moves through the smoke with ease and finds the boy. Dumbledore realizes in this moment that the blood protection from Harry's mother is now dead. As long as the world knows Harry is alive, he is a target for the dark forces still hiding in the shadows. Dumbledore makes a hard decision. He carries the boy out of the ruins and tells himself that for Harry to survive, the boy who lived must die. He decides to erase Harry Potter from history. With a complex, heavy wave of his wand, Dumbledore severs the Trace, the Ministry's magical tether to underage wizards. Deep within the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, Harry Potter's magical signature simply blinks out of existence. He is officially a ghost. Dumbledore takes the boy to a cold grey part of London. He stands before the iron gates of St. Jude's Orphanage. The building is tall, dark, and smells of rain and old stone. Dumbledore does not use Harry's real name. He uses magic to confuse the staff, making them believe that Harry is just another child found in the wreckage of a fire with no family left. He leaves no letters and no instructions. Dumbledore looks at the boy one last time and silently asks for forgiveness, believing that total isolation is the only way to keep him safe until he is old enough to fight. The heavy doors shut. Harry is led down a long, quiet hallway by a woman who does not look back to see if he is following. He is no longer a hero. He is just a number in a system that does not care about him. The 6 years at St. Jude's are defined by the heavy presence of Rory. Rory is 14, a boy with a thick build and messy brown hair, who towers over the other orphans. He is the unofficial king of the grey hallways. To Rory, Harry is the perfect target, small, silent, and never willing to fight back. Rory makes it his mission to ensure Harry never feels full. He waits in the cafeteria to swipe Harry's bread and trips him in the corridors for no reason other than to see the boy hit the stone floor. Harry accepts this as his reality. He keeps his head down and lets the tightness in his chest grow, never realizing that his body is absorbing every bit of anger and storing it like a battery. The only person who makes the silence bearable is Lydia. She is a few years older than Harry, with dark red hair and a kind face that feels familiar to him. She arrived 2 years ago, and Lydia is the only one who doesn't look at Harry with pity or fear. She shares her meagre rations with him and whispers stories of a world outside the grey walls. She is the anchor that keeps Harry from drifting away entirely. On the morning of July 31st, Harry's 11th birthday, the air in the orphanage feels different. It is thick and heavy, like the moments before a thunderstorm. Harry wakes up feeling a strange heat behind his eyes. Lydia finds him in a quiet corner of the yard. She has a bright look in her eyes and pulls a small crumpled paper bag from her pocket. Inside is a tiny lopsided cake she has spent weeks saving her copper coins to buy. It is the first gift Harry has ever received. For a moment, the tightness in his chest softens. He looks at Lydia, and for the first time in years, he feels like a person instead of a ghost. But the moment is shattered by a shadow. Rory appears, laughing at the sight of the small cake. Before Harry can react, Rory reaches out and swats the cake from Harry's hands. It hits the dirt, ruined and covered in grit. The heat in Harry's chest doesn't just soften now, it vanishes, replaced by cold, violent pressure. He doesn't yell, he doesn't move, he simply stares at Rory. Suddenly, Rory's laughter turns into a gasp of terror. His face begins to redden, his arms and legs start to swell, his clothes straining against his skin. Within seconds, Rory is no longer a boy. He is a massive rounded shape, groaning as he begins to lift off the ground like a grotesque balloon. The other children scream and scatter. Harry watches in horror. He looks at his own hands, terrified of the invisible power that has just turned a human being into a monster. He looks at Lydia, her face is pale, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and fear. Harry realizes that he cannot stay. He turns and bolts for the iron gates. He doesn't look back at the building, only at Lydia's shrinking figure as he disappears into the crowded, wet, sleek streets of London. Harry runs until his lungs burn and his legs feel like lead. He finds himself in the heart of London, away from the grey walls of St. Jude's. He finds a way into an abandoned tube station, a place where the train stopped running decades ago. He stays there for 2 days, hiding in the cold darkness. He has no bed, no coat, and no food. By the 3rd day, the hunger is a sharp claw in his stomach. He is forced out into the light to look for food. He wanders the streets, his clothes torn and dirty. He approaches restaurants and cafes, but the owners look at him with a disgust and turn him away before he can even ask for help. Deeper in the city, down a narrow alley, he finds a pub called the White Horse. It is old and smells of wood smoke and spilled ale. Near the back bins, Harry finds the remains of a meal. He is so hungry he doesn't care where it came from. A woman in her late 50s, the owner of the pub, walks out the back door and catches him. She doesn't yell. She looks at his thin face and his bright green eyes and sees a boy who has been forgotten. She brings him a plate of warm food and tells him that many boys sleep on these streets. She introduces herself as Sandra and makes him a deal. If he helps her sweep the floors and clear the tables, she will feed him every night. For the next few weeks, Harry returns to the pub. He works hard, his hands getting calloused and his stomach finally full. One night, back in the silence of the abandoned station, he lights a small candle. He sits in the flickering light and finally thinks about the feeling he had on his birthday. He remembers the heat and the way the air seemed to bend around him. He holds a copper coin in his hand and tries to find that feeling again. He digs deep into the center of his chest, pushing past the fear. He feels the magic rise like a tide. It is no longer a fever, it is a current of energy. He focuses on the coin. In a blink, the coin vanishes from his left hand and appears in his right. He does it again and again. Harry remembers seeing a magician on the street near Covent Garden, watching people throw money into a hat for simple card tricks. He realizes that what he has is better than any trick. The next day, he goes to Sandra at the White Horse and shows her what he can do. He makes her keys float an inch off the bar and turns a napkin into a paper bird that looks as if it actually flutters its wings. The woman is shocked and thinks it's the best illusion she has ever seen. She sees a way to bring more customers into her pub. She tells Harry he can perform for 30 minutes every weekend. She promises to pay him £5 a night. For Harry, £5 feels like a fortune. The next 2 years pass in a blur of hard work and secret practice. By the time he is 13, Harry is no longer the scared boy from the cupboard. He is lean, quiet, and incredibly fast, all things he mastered from growing up on the streets. He performs at the White Horse every weekend. The regulars call him the Boy Wonder, but no one knows his real name. He learns to control the tide in his blood, making it move with a flick of his fingers. He doesn't just do tricks anymore, he manipulates the world around him. He is careful with every penny he earns. He hides his money in a metal box beneath the floorboards of the tube station. He is saving for something specific. He is saving for a real life. He wants to buy a set of forged documents, a passport and a birth certificate, under a new name. He wants a small apartment where the doors actually lock. He is building a wall between himself and his past. He has no idea that while he is saving for a life in the Muggle world, the Wizarding world is falling apart. Without Harry Potter, Voldemort's shadow is beginning to grow longer. Harry is now 13, and his show is the highlight of the weekend at the White Horse. He moves with a quiet confidence that makes him seem older than he is. To the Muggles in the pub, he is a master of sleight of hand. He makes coins dance across his knuckles and disappear into thin air. He makes a deck of cards fly from one hand to the other like a living snake. The regulars cheer and toss extra coins into his hat. They think it's just a very good trick. Harry smiles, but his eyes remain sharp and observant. He is constantly checking the room, a habit learned from years on the street. At the back of the room, sitting in the darkest corner, is a man who doesn't cheer. He wears a heavy, tattered coat and holds a glass of water he hasn't touched. He watches Harry's hands with a strange, intense focus. When the show ends and the crowd thins out, the man approaches the bar. Harry is counting his earnings when the stranger stops beside him. The man speaks in a low, tired voice. He asks Harry why a boy of his talent isn't at Hogwarts. He warns Harry that performing magic so openly in front of Muggles is dangerous. and could get him in serious trouble with the authorities. Harry looks at the man, completely lost. He has no idea what the word Hogwarts means. He assumes the man is talking about a magician's school or a government agency for street performers. Harry tells the man he doesn't know what he's talking about. He explains that these are just tricks he practices to keep from starving. He says he isn't part of any Hogwarts and just wants to be left alone to do his job. The stranger looks at Harry for a long time. A look of sad understanding crosses his face. He tells Harry that he understands why he would lie. He says that since the Dark Lord Voldemort returned to power, the world has become a terrifying place for young people. The man mentions the tragedy from the year before, the death of the young Weasley girl at the school. He says that after what happened to her, many families are hiding their children and refusing to send them to Hogwarts this year. He tells Harry that his secret is safe and that he won't report him for using magic in the pub. The man leaves a gold coin on the bar, a currency Harry has never seen before, and walks out into the night. Harry is left standing in the middle of the pub, holding the heavy gold coin. His mind is racing. He has spent 2 years thinking he was a freak or a miracle in a normal world. Now a stranger has suggested there is a whole school for people like him. The name Voldemort sends a cold shiver down Harry's spine, though he doesn't know why. He realizes that the real life he was saving for might be much more dangerous than he ever imagined. The world he tried to hide from is finally starting to bleed into his own. Another year passes. Harry still lives in the tunnels, still performs at the White Horse, but his focus has shifted. The gold coin the stranger left behind becomes an obsession. He spends his days in public libraries, searching through books on ancient currencies and historical coins. But he finds nothing that matches the strange metal. He tried to spend it once at a pawnbroker, but the man behind the counter looked at the coin with a sudden glassy-eyed confusion and handed it back to Harry, unable to process what it was. Harry realized the coin itself is protected by magic. He keeps it in his pocket constantly, a heavy reminder that there is a door he hasn't found the key to yet. It is July 31st again, Harry's 15th birthday. He is walking near a library in central London when he bumps into a young woman carrying a stack of books. It is Lydia. She looks different, older, healthier, her red hair pulled back neatly. She had left St. Jude's on her 16th birthday and is now living in a halfway house for girls, working a part-time job and taking night classes. They walk together through the rainy streets, reconnecting. As they talk about the past, Harry feels a chill. When the subject of his running away comes up, Lydia smiles sadly. She remembers Rory, the bully, squashing Harry's birthday cake into the dirt. Harry realizes she thinks he ran away out of heartbreak and anger. She has absolutely no memory of Rory inflating like a balloon, or the terrifying display of accidental magic that actually caused Harry to flee. Harry realizes with a sickening jolt that someone has been inside her head. Someone wiped her memory of that day to cover his tracks. The rain gets heavier, driving them to look for shelter. Lydia spots a tiny, grubby-looking pub sandwiched between a bookshop and a record store. The sign above the door is chipped, reading The Leaky Cauldron. They step inside. The air is thick with pipe smoke and a strange, heavy atmosphere. The patrons are cloaked in shadows, nursing peculiar drinks. Everyone stops talking in unison and stares at them. Before Harry and Lydia can reach the bar, a loud commotion breaks out near the stairs, shouting and the sound of breaking glass. Terrified, Harry grabs Lydia's hand and pulls her toward the back door to escape the fight. They find themselves in a tiny, dead-end courtyard containing only a dustbin and a blank brick wall. Trapped between the commotion inside and the wall, Harry feels the familiar tide of magic rise in his blood, amplified by the panic. He places his hands desperately against the cold bricks. He feels a pulse of energy jump from the gold coin in his pocket to the wall. The bricks instantly begin to wriggle. A small hole appears in the center, expanding rapidly as the bricks fold themselves away to the side, creating a wide archway. Harry stares in shock, but Lydia simply steps through the archway. She doesn't react to the impossible sight of a solid wall melting away. It is as if her brain simply refuses to register the magic happening inches from her face. They step inside into a different world. The grey, rainy London is gone, replaced by cobblestone streets bathed in warm light. The air smells of strange spices, burning parchment, and something sweet and metallic. They walk down the streets, their eyes wide. They see cauldrons stacked outside shops, owls hooting in cages, and robes shimmering in shop windows. Harry has never seen anything like it. Lydia is equally amazed. Harry watches her and thinks to himself that she interprets it through the only lens she understands. She probably thinks they have stumbled upon an elaborate hidden theatrical district or a movie set. Lydia stops in front of a narrow, dusty shop. A single wand lies on a faded purple cushion in the window. The gold letters above the door are peeling. Ollivanders, makers of fine wands since 382 BC. Lydia's eyes light up. She tells Harry this is perfect for his act, a real magician's prop shop. Before he can stop her, she grabs his hand and pulls him inside. A tinkling bell rings somewhere in the depths of the shop. The space is tiny, empty, and smells heavily of dust and old wood. Shelves packed with long, thin boxes reach the ceiling. From the darkness of the back room, an old man glides forward. His eyes are wide and pale, shining like moons in the dim light. He doesn't look at the dusty floor or the strange clothes Harry is wearing. He looks directly at the lightning bolt scar hidden beneath Harry's hair. The man's voice is a soft whisper that seems to vibrate in the air. "I wondered when I'd be seeing you, Mr. Potter." Harry steps back, his heart hammering against his ribs. He hasn't heard that name in 10 years. He wants to ask how this stranger knows him, but his throat is dry. Beside him, Lydia is smiling, her eyes bright with curiosity. She must think this is all part of a show, a brilliant bit of acting by the shopkeeper in a hidden part of the city. Ollivander does not reach for a tape measure. He does not search the shelves. He moves with a singular purpose to a specific shelf and pulls down a thin, dusty box. "Holly and phoenix feather," Ollivander murmurs, sliding the lid off. 11 inches, nice and supple. He holds the wand out. Harry hesitates, looking at the dark, polished wood. He slowly reaches out and takes it. The moment his fingers close around the handle, the room changes. The cold, damp feeling of the London streets vanishes. A sudden, violent warmth rushes up Harry's arm, spreading through his chest like wildfire. It is the tide he felt in the tube station, but now it has a direction. It has a voice. A stream of brilliant red and gold sparks erupts from the end of the wand, dancing like miniature stars against the dark shelves. A sudden wind sweeps through the small shop, fluttering the pages of old books and causing the lamps to flicker. Lydia watches in amazement, a wide smile on her face. She leans against the counter, with a face that says the special effects in this shop are better than anything she has ever seen before. She looks at Harry, proud of him, believing he has finally found the perfect prop for his magic shows. But Harry isn't looking at Lydia, he is looking at the wand. For the first time in his life, the pressure in his chest is gone. The fever has found its home. Ollivander leans over the counter, his pale eyes unblinking. He tells Harry that he is curious he should be destined for this wand, when its brother, the wand that gave him the scar, belongs to the man who is currently tearing the world apart. Harry looks at the old man, the wand still humming in his hand. He realizes that this isn't a trick, and it isn't a performance. The stranger in the pub was right. There is a war happening in the shadows, and whether he wants to be or not, Harry Potter is somehow connected to it. The peace of the wand shop is suddenly shattered. The front door doesn't just open, it is blown off its hinges by a blast of dark light. 2 figures in long black robes and silver masks storm inside. They move with a violent, jagged energy that feels wrong to look at. Before Harry can even raise his new wand, the taller figure points a piece of wood at him. Harry feels a sensation unlike anything he has ever known. It is as if his blood has suddenly turned to ice. His muscles lock, his breath catches in his throat. He is frozen in place like a statue. Beside him, Lydia is caught in the same invisible trap, her face twisted in a look of silent terror. Harry's mind is screaming, but his body is a cage. He can only watch as the masked man walks towards him. The man suddenly gives a double take. He then reaches out with a gloved hand and brushes the hair from Harry's forehead. The Death Eater's hand stops. He stares at the lightning bolt scar. The silence in the shop becomes heavy and suffocating. The man's masked head tilts to the side, and Harry can see his eyes through the silver slits. They are wide with a sudden pale realization. The masked man stumbles back, his voice shaking as he mutters to his partner. He realizes he isn't looking at a stray street kid. He is looking at a ghost. He is looking at the boy who was supposed to have died in a fire 10 years ago. The Death Eaters don't move to kill him. They look like they're about to run and tell their master the impossible news. The shop window behind the Death Eaters shatters into 1,000 diamonds. A massive explosion of smoke and red light fills the room, knocking the masked men off their feet and breaking the spell on Harry and Lydia. Harry collapses to the floor, gasping for air as the ice in his veins melts. Through the swirling smoke, 3 figures leap into the shop. They are tall with bright red hair that stands out against the darkness of their heavy combat-worn cloaks. They move with a synchronized professional speed. One of them hits the first Death Eater with a bolt of blue light that sends him crashing into the shelves. The other 2 provide cover, their wands flashing in the dim light. The 3 boys stand over Harry. 2 of them look identical, Fred and George, but they aren't smiling. Their faces are scarred and set in grim expressions. The 3rd boy, Ron, is the youngest, but he has a hardness in his eyes that suggests he has seen too much death for someone so young. Ron looks at Harry. For a split second, his eyes widen just like the Death Eaters did. But he doesn't freeze. He leans down, grabs Harry by the shoulder, and pulls him to his feet. Fred and George grab a confused Lydia. Ron speaks quickly and urgently. He tells Harry and Lydia that they have to move right now. He says the Ministry will be swarming the alley in seconds, and that they are the only chance Harry has of staying alive. He points towards the back of the shop and tells them to run. Harry doesn't argue. He can feel the dark energy in the air, the sense of a world that is actively hunting him. He grabs Lydia's hand, feeling her trembling, and follows the 3 red-headed brothers into the shadows. As they burst out the back of the shop, Harry looks back one last time. Ollivander is gone, vanished into the ruins of his store. The real life Harry has been saving for, the apartment, the fake documents, the quiet safety, is gone. They navigate a labyrinth of shifting side alleys, the red-headed brothers casting heavy, obscuring charms to mask their retreat from the Ministry's approaching censors. Harry is forced to utilize every street-learned reflex to keep pace, his shoes slick with the grease and rain of the city. They reach a nondescript, rusted service door in the shadows of a railway bridge, which Ron opens with a complex, silent series of wand movements. They descend into the deep, forgotten arteries of the city, moving through a series of pressurized airlocks and magically reinforced tunnels. The cold, damp air of the surface is gradually replaced by a dry, sterile heat as they penetrate the final layer of the hidden bunker. The underground station functions as a hive of quiet, desperate activity, serving as the nerve center of a dying world. Harry navigates the tunnels, passing people who look completely ordinary, men in trench coats and teenagers in hoodies, huddled over glowing tactical maps that shimmer in the dim light. Ron notices Harry's confusion and stops walking to quietly explain that these people are squibs, the invisible ghosts of the magical world, who were born into wizarding families but possess no power of their own. He tells Harry that because the Dark Lord views them as less than human, they are never suspected, allowing them to serve as the hidden eyes and ears of the Resistance. Harry then observes the veterans of the war, a man with a scarred face and a spinning prosthetic eye, and a tired-looking man sitting beside a woman with bright bubblegum pink hair. In the shadows of a rusted service pillar, Harry notices a man standing alone with sunken cheeks, tattered clothes, and a wild, hollowed-out eyes. The man watches Harry pass with an expression of such raw recognition that Harry's hand instinctively goes to his hidden scar. He turns to share the unsettling moment with Lydia, but his stomach drops when he realizes she is no longer walking beside him. He follows the sound of low, urgent voices toward a heavy door at the end of the corridor. From behind the door, Harry overhears the measured, authoritative voice of an elderly man questioning a girl who sounds like she is defending herself. The man's voice expresses a cold concern about Harry's presence here. He presses about Harry's temperament, questioning if years of isolation have turned him into another version of Voldemort. The silence is shattered when Ron Weasley steps forward, his voice loud and deliberate as he announces Harry's presence outside the door. The door opens to reveal Lydia and Dumbledore, their faces frozen in the look of observers caught in an uncomfortable truth. Seeing the look of pure cold betrayal on Harry's face, Ron quietly asks to speak with the ex-headmaster alone in the corridor. Dumbledore agrees, stating he will give Harry and Lydia a moment to speak, before stepping out and closing the door. Left alone with the girl he once considered his only anchor, Harry finally lets the silence break. He goes on a low, trembling rant, realizing that every major moment of his life, from the shared rations at the orphanage to the chance meeting at the library, was a calculated ploy to see if he was another Dark Lord. He feels the tide in his blood, the same violent, explosive energy he felt when he blew up the bully at the orphanage, welling up inside his chest. He desperately tries to tame the feeling before it bubbles over, wrestling with a power that now feels like an enemy. Lydia is speaking, her voice desperate as she tries to explain, but Harry can no longer hear her. The world around him begins to get muffled and blurry. The room seems to tilt as the pressure behind his eyes becomes unbearable. He sees Lydia's face shift from defensive anger to a look of sudden, sharp terror in seconds. She turns and shouts for help as Harry's knees buckle. Dumbledore bursts back into the room, his hand outstretched, but before he can reach Harry, Harry's vision fails entirely. Harry falls to the cold stone floor, the impact of the ground the last thing he feels before everything goes black. In the heavy absolute silence of the darkness, a new sound emerges. It is a chilling, high-pitched voice that seems to vibrate through his very soul. "The boy who lived," the voice whispers with a terrifying cold satisfaction. "I have been looking for you." I know, ending it there feels like a crime, but this story grew into something far bigger and far darker than I ever anticipated. To do this journey justice, I've turned this What If into a 3-part cinematic event. You won't have to wait long though. Part 2 drops this Wednesday, and the finale concludes next Sunday, March 1st. It has been nice to get away from Hogwarts, letting my mind get a bit creative without the familiar structure that Hogwarts brings, though after the 3-part concludes, I will go back to the standard What Ifs. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss that Wednesday upload. The support and comments have been overwhelmingly positive on my last few videos, and it really means a lot to me. It is because of you that I get to make these videos, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.